ShareTime.
What is it?
Well, it's a podcast that we just started.
Who we are.
I'm a man.
I'm a lady.
And we're doing a podcast together. And basically, it is about sharing things that we really like with each other. Some things that the other person knows about, and some things that the other person doesn't know about. Yeah, secret things.
Yeah.
It's dirty things. And yeah, we started this podcast because we met basically sharing stuff like big nerds, and we haven't stopped since. Like, one of the first things that you and I shared with each other was that we liked BSG, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, pretty much the first time we ever talked to each other, it was BSG.
Then we were friends. I think I said that night, like, oh, we're friends now.
Yeah.
And we were ever since. And we kept talking about all kinds of stuff like that. And then we started to watch different shows and things with each other that the other person hadn't really watched before.
We've gone through two whole series together. 2 huge
series.
And I think the thing is, like, it's cool that one of the series was one of my shows that I'm very passionate about, which is Buffy. And then after that, so in case that needed clarification.
It does.
And then you shared Lost with me, which is something that I'd never seen.
Yep.
And we both became really big fans of both, which is, so, I don't know, since then we've just really liked the idea of sharing things with each other, and now we're going to try sharing it with an audience, so.
Because we think that our conversations are freaking awesome that we've had about these things.
And we want everyone to know
so now
our
everyone
glory.
Needs to, like, just get it with the program, essentially.
So
yeah, we're sharing all kinds of stuff. We're not going to do either of those because we already just watched them recently. But
we might have like some episodes where we maybe touch on those things. We'll see. It's open.
Yeah, but for now, mostly we're going to be sharing movie and television shows that we think are really cool, and either we haven't seen for a while or whatever, and we just want to share it with the other person and then have a discussion.
Most of them are going to be things that one of us has seen and the other person either hasn't seen or, like, just had a very different experience with, maybe isn't as passionate about it as the other person is, and we're going to try to, see it from the other person's point of view and discuss it and get more into these things. So, I'm excited. ShareTime. So, the first episode here, we decided to watch Ghostbusters.
We did, but before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about who we are, I guess.
Yes.
Do you want to go first?
I don't really know what else to say about me besides those things.
You watched BSG.
That's my life.
And once you watched Lost and Buffy.
Yeah.
That's about it, I guess.
That's basically who I am.
I'm Andrew. I guess I'm an artist by trade and have been forever. And yeah, I like all kinds of weird stuff like making video games and playing video games and watching television and reading sometimes and other really, really nerdy stuff and then talking about it with people.
Yeah, and I'm Jen, and I like a lot of the same stuff. Andrew's introduced me to video games, which is kind of a new territory for me, but
he's a cool guy.
Yeah, this Andrew.
No, video games.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm more of a science lady by trade.
Business card.
Yes.
Proves it.
But yeah, I've always been really into some nerdy stuff and TV and talking about it and getting into it, so.
Yeah, we're into watching stuff and talking about stuff.
Yeah, basically.
So if you like that, this podcast
snacks.
is for you. And eating snacks. That's what you can do while you listen.
Pretty much.
Duh. What haven't we talked about?
You mean as far as who we are?
Yeah, or why we've started this. I guess that's kind of it. We have a lot of stuff in store. I'll talk a little bit more about the podcast in general. Like, we have been watching stuff for a few years now and just, like, goofing off and having, like, crazy discussions and stuff. And through that, we discovered that we both have kind of wanted to do, like, a podcasty type thing.
Yeah.
We both had, like, also kind of dreamed of doing that one day separately.
Yeah, just as, like, a cool creative outlet and, just trying our hand at this.
Yeah. And this is our first thing we've ever really done like that. So, we're learning. But it's going to be really fun. Yeah. And so far it's been pretty fun. Just in this recording. And, Yeah.
So, okay, this is going to be a little... I'll edit.
Yeah.
Drink some wine.
Sorry, let me... So yeah, basically, this first episode, we're going to be doing Ghostbusters.
Because who doesn't love Ghostbusters?
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Exactly. And busting makes me feel good.
Yes.
So...
But this, our history with this movie is... Jen, go ahead.
I'm a huge fan of Ghostbusters. I mean, like, I think anyone who was alive in the 90s, like, watched Ghostbusters, pretty much.
Oh, you're not a 90s kid, then? If you didn't watch Ghostbusters? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Fair.
No, I mean, it was always on TV, and, you know, Bill Murray is hilarious, but it was something I watched a lot when I was a kid, so I just have always loved it, but I haven't watched it.
Well, isn't it
recently.
one of your favorite movies?
It is. It's like definitely one of my top movies. I think it's great. And I think there's just so many different things about it that are wonderful, which we'll get into. But, yeah, so I'm a big fan, and I kind of want to do this as a first episode.
Essentially Jen kind of elected this one. We kind of went through some things for our first episode, but this one was a really good one. I know Jen was really excited to do it, and we thought it would be like a good sort of like one-off-ish first episode. Mm-hmm. My experience with Ghostbusters is a little bit similar. It was never really one of my favorite movies. I really like it. But when I was a kid, it was just like another movie out there. I had never seen it, I guess, all the way through from beginning to end. I've kind of seen big chunks of it here and there, like most of it, but like never sat down and watched it in one sitting.
Yeah, when we were watching, there were parts where you were like surprised that that existed.
Yeah, mostly stuff in the beginning. But I actually, and we didn't talk about this, but I think Ghostbusters 2 is actually a movie that I saw possibly first and more than the first one as well. So yeah, I was less familiar with the first one in general, but now I've seen it.
Yeah, I think Ghostbusters 2 is something that I don't even remember. It's kind of funny. Like, I love the first Ghostbusters, but I know I saw Ghostbusters 2, but I can't even think, like, what happens in it.
It's kind of
like,
weird.
Is it even like, I know Bill Murray's in it, but, like, is Sigourney Weaver in it? Like,
basically everyone's in it, that you want to be in it. And but it's weird though. And I definitely already thought while we're watching this, like, I want to do a follow-up at some point of Ghostbusters 2, because in a weird way I feel
Moranis in it?
Yes. I feel like that's almost me sharing that one with you a bit more, because I've seen that a lot. And I have seen that one all the way through.
And that would be a totally, like haven't watched it since I was under 10 years old, so that would be
funny thing. I think the first time I watched it, I was in a waiting room in a doctor's office as a kid, and like it came on, and I watched most of the movie because I was in the doctor's office for that long.
Which is especially boring when you're a child.
Yeah, so it was amazing. It was this really cool movie that came on. But anyway, that's Ghostbusters 2. That's a whole other story. So back to Ghostbusters 1.
That. I don't know. Let's just start with giving
an overview.
Yeah, an overview of
what this phenomenon that is Ghostbusters is. Because people are still talking about it today, which, can I talk about something real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like, I don't know if anybody's been following, but apparently there's a new Ghostbusters happening with, supposedly, an all-female cast. Like, female Ghostbusters.
Whoa, I did not know that.
So we'll put a pin in that, but...
That's awesome.
It's kind of like a cultural phenomenon, because as our wiki article just told us, it came out in 1984.
Yeah.
2 years before I was born, and I'm old. So, so it's been around for a while, and people are still talking about it, people are still watching it, people are still huge fans of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, we were at Comic-Con this year.
New York Comic-Con.
And there were some people dressed up as Ghostbusters.
With very impressive, like, proton packs.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know, it's a pretty awesome movie, and I think a lot of people have seen it.
Yeah.
So,
it's a weird movie, though.
Yeah. I know, I kind of wonder, like, how it came about. Like, it's... I was noticing as we were rewatching it, like, there were some parts that were, like, kind of spooky. Like, it's a weird mix of certain things at times, you know, like, it's a comedy, but, like, there's, I don't know, there's, like...
It's a little spooky. I mean, it's, like, kid spooky, I would say. I don't think it's, like, spooky. Like, when you look at Slimer, he's just, like, he's like a translucent Muppet, I think. Like, that's how I think they did it. They like filmed a Muppet and then kind of
I'm wondering like how they did some of the things. Like I've heard that there's like a book that they released that was like about like the like how they did a lot of the effects and things like that, because I don't know, I'm not really a fan of CGI and stuff, and this is something we've talked about before. Like I much prefer the way they did a lot of the things.
Yeah, I agree. But before we get into that, because I think that's the topic we're going to save for later.
Yes.
Because it's a little bit more extensive. Just like Ghostbusters overall, like, it's kind of a movie about, like, these sort of oddball, eccentric, like, scientist / university types that are studying the paranormal. Yeah. In a weird way, it's like this oddball group that doesn't seem like they would even should know each other. Like, Peter Venkman. Peter Venkman is Bill Murray's character, and I see, like, this is something I was thinking. Is he the protagonist? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. I'd say he is, but like I was noticing as we were rewatching this that like he's very different than the other guys, like Dan Aykroyd and I'm not sure the other like
Harold
main.
Ramis.
Yes, yeah.
I think it's Ramis.
Yeah. They're like the smart ones. They're the scientists. I mean, Bill Murray is technically like he has a PhD. He's a doctor.
In psychology.
He has a PhD in psychology.
Parapsychology.
But he doesn't really seem to know that much about science at the whole movie. He seems much more like a con man. Honestly, like throughout the whole thing, he's like he's a businessman. He's a people person, and he's just kind of like taking advantage of people throughout a lot of the movie.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, like how they all fell into this together, and
you don't get to see.
You don't get to see that because at the start of the movie, they already have like this technology pretty much developed, you know.
Or it's done behind the scenes as stuff is happening. We don't get to see it.
Yeah. No, at one point they were like, "Oh, the blah 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 like thing that they use to capture ghosts." So like, it's almost ready. We just need a little more. So like, I think that they've been working on it for years. Well,
because in the early scenes, they're still at that university, which I didn't even really remember that part too much.
Yeah.
But they're at a university. They have apparently a grant to be studying paranormal stuff.
Which I was wondering, like, do a lot of colleges have?
Oh, probably not, but it was kind of cool because it's like a sub thing of like somewhat science and somewhat psychology. Well, I don't know why psychology, but just like paranormal stuff.
Right.
That basically we just like had to swallow that pill, but the whole movie is called Ghostbusters, so it's like, okay, well, we gotta make ghosts a thing.
Right.
But they get kicked out of the college right away because, you know, the dean is kind of a dick and he's like, we're not gonna waste our money on you anymore because Peter Venkman's an asshole. Oh, that's one of my points. He's an asshole.
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say, he does seem kind of like even though the dean was like kind of a dick about it, like, you know, it's not like, it didn't seem like Bill Murray was like really doing that much like real work.
No, he was hitting on that girl, like students.
Oh yeah, I like for the first time I noticed like how, because I haven't really watched this as an adult, I guess. I was noticing like how sleazy he was.
He's
like,
pretty sleazy.
He was like,
I think it's the
like
time
middle-aged.
period, I guess.
I know, it's just like right off his that. But he was like kind of sleazy. Like he's middle-aged. I don't know how old he is in this, but like he's like middle-aged, 30, like mid to late 30s, I'd say. Yeah. And he's like hitting on like one of his college students and like clearly trying to like get with her. And then like later when, you know, Sigourney Weaver is one of his clients, he's like really
he takes advantage of her in
like,
in her apartment.
Yeah, and he was like so
first time you met her. He's like he was like I kept thinking of the word cad, like he's kind of a cad, you know. He's a tramp. But then you can
be like, oh, it's Bill Murray. So
exactly.
It's okay.
He's like the tramp character. He kind of like gets away with stuff because he's lovable and he's funny and, you know. But I feel like he's sort of framed as like the person that the audience is supposed to root for. And like he is the voice of us because he thinks those guys are dorks. His like buds.
Yeah.
Like he thinks they're kind of like ridiculous.
There were a few times when I was getting like a Three Stooges vibe where like he was,
that's a good one.
He was like Mo, right? Is Mo the one that like, is
Mo,
like,
I think, is like the leader.
Like the leader, guy. And he's like always pulling them by the ear. And there was one point where literally he grabs Dan Aykroyd by the ear and like pulls him aside.
That's a good one. I would say that he would be like kind of a Mo because he pulls the other ones back in. Larry would be Egon probably. Because Larry's the one with, like, the fuzzy hair, and he kind of is just, like, very, like, straight. Like, and then Curly is, like, the kid-like, like, goofy one, which was totally Dan Aykroyd. In the movie. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely have kind of a Three Stooges vibe, but then throw in ghosts and, like, PhDs.
Yeah, and also, like, they clearly were, like, smart people, like, whether it was, like, scientifically or, like, with business sense. Like, Bill Murray did create a successful business, like, pretty quickly.
And he had the courage, too, a little bit. Like, he had the balls, I would say, a little bit out of all of them.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, so, like, they get kicked out of the university, and then the premise of the movie is that, well, they have all this research that they've done. They feel like they have a lead, because in the beginning they do go on a mission, like they go to the New York Public Library and they actually see a ghost for the first time. Yeah. So they know that they're legitimate. They lose their funding right away. Yeah, and it was like
supposedly the first time that they ever really saw a ghost.
Yeah, exactly. So they get kicked out of the school. They're like, okay, well, we might as well go with this because what else are we going to do? And I think Bill Murray honestly thinks it's his best bet because he can just like use the other guys' resources.
I also felt like he was like a skeptic the whole time. Like I felt like the other ones were very much like they believed in this science. Like even if they hadn't seen that ghost, they would have been like, I mean, they clearly had been working on this research for a while. And I think like Bill Murray didn't necessarily believe like Sigourney Weaver or like in the public library. His first thing that he did was he asked the old librarian if she was like had a history of mental illness and like asked her all these questions because like he didn't seem to believe it, whereas the other guys were like totally they were in, you know.
Yep.
So I think he's kind of a skeptic the whole time, and like even when he does see stuff, he kind of just is like whatever, like as long as I get paid.
Yeah, he does seem still to be a little bit aloof, even if there's a ghost right in front of him. Yeah, he's still just kind of out for himself a bit. He's just kind of like this tramp-y character, and like, but you like him. You kind of want to see him.
I feel like he often plays characters like that.
Yeah, it's basically him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the premise of the movie. Then they start, the love interest sort of is introduced with Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver has an issue with some ghosts in her apartment.
She sees a commercial like right before it happens of the Ghostbusters, so it's very convenient. Yeah. Funny.
And I don't know, by the end, they pretty much saved New York City from...
by the end, yes. By the end, everything escalates very much.
Yeah. Basically, ghosts are like taking over New York City, and they fix it. So, yeah, that's
the movie. Thanks, everyone. No, I'm just kidding. Like the whole thing. Like, I think once they establish their business, then you kind of get to see more about their characters, and like they get to sort of build up a little bit. And
you're rooting for them to be successful, like. They're kind of struggling at the beginning, but they eventually,
It's grassroots. It's like a startup, a real startup. It's kind of cool. So, that's a lot of, the basic plot stuff, or, the premise, I guess, mostly. But not to talk too much about that. There's a lot of cool stuff in this movie that really made it special. And, of course, one of the main things is, the ghosts. The ghosts themselves.
Yeah. First of all, I think it was... I don't know how they, did everything in this movie, because I don't know technology stuff, but I thought it was pretty good effects for the time.
Quote, does not know technology stuff.
Does not know technology stuff.
Great stuff.
But I think they looked pretty good for the time. It was 1984, and I think it was pretty cool.
I agree. I think something I took away from watching it again was I think that the ghosts, they weren't too scary. It was almost intended. Not the language and some of the themes weren't very much for kids, but I feel like kids could have watched it.
Oh yeah, I definitely watched this movie as a kid, and I don't remember ever being scared.
Yeah, exactly. They were kind of cartoony. The colors were really bright, and there wasn't too much gore or anything like that. There was no blood or anything. It was more goofy, and the ghosts were a little bit harmless to some degree.
And something that was kind of weird actually, that I noticed was. I mean, what is a ghost? A ghost is supposedly, a person that died. But, that, slime... Slimer. What kind of person was he?
Basically me, if I died. 'Cause all he did the whole movie was eat.
But, he didn't even, a lot of them didn't look even humanoid. The first one in the library, she was, clearly, she was, a woman in, like 18th century dress or something like that. But like Slimer and like that one that came out of the subway, who was like had like crazy claws. They're kind of like ghouls or like monsters. They're not really like very humanoid.
Now that I think about it, though,
What?
there weren't that many ghosts on
There
screen.
weren't. There was like maybe 5
that I can remember. Yeah, there wasn't too many
there's
like
like
established
the first one in the
ghosts.
library. There's Slimer. There's.
Which I feel like the second one they upped the game a lot, just foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But in this one, it was
There's the one
like just a
coming out of
few
the
or enough, I
subway.
guess.
There's the one that like was in the taxi cab as like the skeleton guy, and then besides that, then there's like the people or like the I don't even know what they were
Dog people?
like the dog people
Zool
and like Zool, like they're like not
I
even
think the guy's
ghosts,
name was
really.
Victor or something, or
Yeah, and
something.
like
And Gozer.
Gore-Tex.
Gore-Tex. Gore-Tex, the lovable alien.
But they were more like demons or something, like from another or like gods from another dimension. Like that was a whole nother level. So
that's true, and this movie really did like have that as sort of a bigger bad, I would say. That they were like the underlying thing that they established early on with Sigourney Weaver.
Actually, the biggest bad was the EPA. We learned from this movie not to trust the EPA.
Yeah. No, he was just annoying. He was just
No.
like government employee A.
Right.
Who was going to cause a ruckus.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a dick, so it didn't matter.
He was dickless, as we learned from Bill Murray.
Best line in the whole movie.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But yeah, the ghosts were fun. I think they made it fun for anybody, because then it wasn't like a horror movie. It was more like a fun movie.
Yeah.
It was maybe scary, but in like a overdone way, like a puppet show.
The only
way
part where I was like, ooh, that's a little spooky was like when Sigourney Weaver is sitting in her chair and then all of a sudden like hands come out of the chair and like grab her and like cover her mouth and like she goes like flying into the kitchen. Like that was a little spooky.
There was some weird sexual things in this movie that were very like, I guess they were understated maybe, but
things that I didn't realize
glaring.
as a child. Like
Bankman was like totally
sexual predator.
he was kind of forward, but
yeah,
he had no consequences or whatever. Mm-hmm. All the women just had to kind of laugh it off.
Yeah.
And then, but like the keymaster and gatekeeper.
Yeah. Okay.
thing.
So we have Sigourney Weaver is the gatekeeper and
vagina.
Yeah, and
Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis is the keymaster.
Penis master.
And then they
did it to summon.
They did it on the roof
for some reason. As a ritual or something.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, I definitely, when I was a kid, did not make that connection, and I never realized that they like had sex or anything.
And I mean, when
like
you think
when we were
about
watching, I was like, wait, did they just have sex? And you're like, yes, like obviously.
when you think about it too, like their guns, like they're just shooting off everywhere a little bit.
Wait, they're guns?
Yeah, they're proton pack guns.
Oh,
like, just kind of like,
no, I made a note about that. I was like, I wrote bunch of dudes crossing their streams.
Crossing their streams. They're crossing their streams, and
like,
somehow
and
that
then,
saved the world.
I know. That was basically, yeah, like there's like this one, I mean, it was a god and it was like taking any form, but like the Gozer, I guess, was this, like, it was a female actress playing it. And then like, it's like, oh, to like defeat this woman, we need to put our dicks together and cross the streams.
And it was the ultimate, like...
And that's like all the
ultimate move, yeah.
So, dude power.
Yeah, dude, I think this movie is definitely dude power for sure. Because,
which I'm okay with. Like, it's fun dude power.
Yeah, it's not... I don't think it was, like, harmful or anything.
And I feel like Sigourney Weaver's always badass in anything.
Sigourney Weaver is badass, and I want to talk a little bit about that later.
Okay.
As well. But one thing I was going to transition to a little bit, because we talked a little bit about it, but just a little bit more about the effects, like, and sort of like a sub-idea of that. Puppets versus claymation.
Okay.
There was both of those things. There was also like cool visual effects with like light stuff and things like that. I don't know how they do that. But specifically, they were either puppets as ghosts doing weird things, or there was like these weird sort of 3D models made of clay that were imposed over certain scenes.
Right.
Like, what were your feelings on that?
Wait, well, can you let's go through and like say what was a puppet and what wasn't.
Okay.
I don't know if I
think Slimer was some sort of puppet.
Okay.
Like a Muppet, essentially.
Yeah.
But then he was imposed with like a glow effect and stuff over the frames.
Okay.
But, so, like, he was a puppet.
Yeah.
The biggest offender, and we've talked about this a little bit before, but for me, the most jarring part is those hell dogs, or whatever they are.
When it's
they look
chasing
cool
Rick
as puppets, but when they're the puppets, because there's two versions, like, they appear as little puppets that don't move, they're just, like, stuck to the ground, sort of. And then there's these other parts where they're moving or running, and they are, like badly imposed onto the frames, and they look like weird, like, claymation. It's just very strange. It looks like a very old movie, like Clash of the Titans or something. Or Land of the Lost.
No, I definitely agree. Like, I much prefer the puppets.
Age well, that part.
Yeah, that part. Like, in general, I honestly feel like Ghostbusters had good effects for the time. And,
I agree.
like,
I think it was beautiful
still,
visually,
like,
actually.
I would honestly rather watch that than, like, some stupid CGI thing where, like, it's all fake.
Yeah, that's something I kind of want to talk about, where I feel like the weird sort of claymation stuff just reminds me of modern CG. Mm-hmm. Just CG is more intensive and more, like, there's more stuff to it. But to me, like, I can spot it pretty easily, like, in most cases, especially if it's some fantastical beast. You pretty much know that someone didn't build a real physical
like robot,
model. Yeah. Which, like, when you think back, like, you look at Jurassic Park, not that was all, like, there was CG in that too, but the parts that were, like, when you could tell that it was, like, a real thing, like a real, like, dinosaur head robot thing.
Right.
It was awesome.
It
was. I am such a fan of that.
I always feel like that's better.
Me too.
Yeah, I think the only part where I was kind of taken out of it from the effects that they did was when the dog is chasing Rick Moranis. Because, like, it also looks like...
That's my scene.
It looks like at times, like, it's kind of... Because you don't really see it moving, you know? You don't see it running, so it looks like it's kind of just dragging itself along the floor in a weird way.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a kid, I just thought that was, like... It was, like, a cool scene. But, like, I didn't really notice... I don't think I noticed that when I was a kid. But, yeah, definitely looking back on it, like, that part did not age well. No. But I think the rest of it is, like, pretty decent.
Oh, yeah, I loved, like, all the cool... I mean, I think this was, like, part of the time of the 80s, where you have all these, like, weird neon effects and things like that. Mm-hmm. I love that, though. Yeah. Like, I like that style, so, like, I thought that was cool. But some other people might think that also aged poorly, because it doesn't fit... Well, it kind of fits with the modern culture stuff. But anyway, I kind of feel like... I almost wish that they would have, like, hand-drawn some, like, detailed, shaded animations or something for those parts rather than what they did. Which I think some films do that kind of a thing where they just hand-draw certain things, and then put those over the frames. But anyway, like, that was one thing that, like, was a little bit, like,
that's like the one part of the movie where you're like, yeah, this is the 80s.
So I guess that's like a cringeworthy thing for me. Do you have like a cringeworthy moment for the movie?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I don't think there's many. Maybe except for when Peter Venkman is a little bit, like, creepy.
Okay, yeah, well, one thing maybe was, like, when he was, like, going after that student, because I didn't remember that part, really. And I was like, ooh, like, made me feel a little funny. Yeah. But, yeah, I don't really know. I can't think of any other cringeworthy things, I guess. That was probably just it. Which, I mean, I think that says that the movie is pretty great if that's, all there is, you know? Like, I feel like it really stands the test of time. I feel like if you show that movie to any kid now, like, they would still think it was cool.
Or teenager. I think, like, teenager age.
For sure. And, like, related to effects and stuff, I thought the soundtrack was awesome.
Me too.
And I don't know if it was, like, a thing to, like, have that many custom songs. Like, there were at least 2 custom songs.
What do you mean by songs? Like, soundtrack stuff? Like
actual songs where, like, the lyrics said something about ghost busting.
Oh.
Like, well, there's, like, the main song, but then there's another song randomly in the middle that I noticed that they said, like, ghost busting or something.
Well, I don't know.
Like,
I think it was, cool. Like, great that they did that. I personally, I had the Ghostbuster theme song, like, on a mix CD when I was in high school that I made myself. Yeah. Because I'm not much of a nerd. So I think it's an awesome, fun song. Like, I think it really helped make that movie, like, memorable and iconic because it was, like, this cool,
I really think that the song was really key in that. So I just think that's cool. I don't know, I can't really think of many other movies that, like, had, like, a theme song, like, in that try to think sense, that, like, that's not an animated movie, you know?
Right. That's a good point.
So that was kind of cool and unique about that, and I do think you're right that, like, it helped it become so iconic because I mean, people, like, know that song, you know?
I kind of wonder, like, how they even got the green light to make this movie. Because it's so weird. Like, it's such a weird concept. I wonder, like, if they were like, oh no, but then we're gonna put songs in it that, like, make people like it. And we're gonna, like, have these cool ghosts, and then we'll, like, sell toys of all our characters, and, like, it'll make so much money for merchandise. Yeah. Maybe.
I mean, I wonder if, I don't know, like, the chronology of Bill Murray's movies, was he, like, already a huge deal at this point? Or?
Well, I think a lot of those guys were like on Saturday Night Live at that point, so
that's true. So they were probably just like, "Hey, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, nudge, nudge, Rick Moranis," exactly. And then everyone's like, "Okay, like you can make that movie."
Overall, I think it's just a super fun movie. Yeah, with some parts that like don't age as well, or I think with like what I was saying earlier. The new installment, I guess, the new Ghostbusters that might be happening soon, hopefully. I think they might address some of those things or like twist it in a way that's like a little bit more modern, more towards our current culture and society. And
I hope that they do maintain like the integrity of the original movies, though.
I agree.
I hope it's not like, look how many awesome, crazy CG ghosts we can shove in this movie, because like I don't know, I wouldn't really want to see that. I'm sure it's probably
gonna happen. Maybe it'll be Michael Bay that does it.
Oh my god, I was just about to say, I hope it's not like the Ninja Turtles movie.
It'll just be like extremely buff ghosts.
Oh my god, yeah, like with like huge veiny necks
into werewolves,
and then everything
made
explodes.
Out of metal.
Everything explodes.
And everything explodes.
So let's I don't know, when is that coming out? We should like.
I have no idea.
We should watch
I think it was just like rumored that was in the works or something.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, one other random thing I want to say about the ghosts was like, it's kind of sad that they just get trapped. Like,
I thought that too. Eternity. Yeah, like those ghosts like are just all stuck with each other too. So like, do they talk to each other? Do they all haunt each other?
And it's like if they're like people, it's like you're just these people's eternal.
Though, but maybe.
Well, isn't like a ghost?
It's
like
probably a person. That's
my
true.
theory was that they've been ghosts for so long that they've like become these like ghoulish things.
That makes sense.
And now they're like. Dehumanized. I feel like I'm talking about like ghost rights for ghosts, but like
ghost rights. Hashtag ghost rights.
But it was kind of sad. Like they're just stuck in this thing, this void, cage, this like void,
purgatory void
forever. So that's kind of sad. I was like,
until they got released mid movie, but
I
guess the premise of that and like the cartoon and like other movies and things is that they get trapped in that weird storage unit.
Yeah.
Technology also was just like, here's technology, there's a thing.
Yeah.
Yay, it solves our problem.
Oh, I thought another like effect or whatever. I thought that their ghost busting guns, whatever, like those lasers. I thought that looked pretty cool.
Guns or proton packs or something.
I think those look pretty cool.
Yeah, they do look really cool. I kind of do think maybe they had some people come into the movie and like, let's make something that kids are going to think are really cool looking, and then we'll sell like, toys with them or like actual packs and whatnot, like Halloween costumes.
I wouldn't mind having a proton.
I mean, we saw people custom make them at Comic-Con.
I know.
So I think the movie was just like very cool. Oh, another thing is like we both live in New York, so it was really cool to see.
That was awesome.
All these like New York
the public library.
Scenes,
oh, and when they bought their like office space / I guess it became where they live, and. Yeah. They were like, they're going into like this, like, they're like, this is a condemned building and stuff. And they go in and they're like, this is how much? And I was like, fuck New York rent. Like, it was too real. That was like in the 80s and like, that sucks.
Apparently New York was a lot rougher back then, so.
That's true. It was like cool seeing like New York, like, everyone kind of came together in the end. Like, it made me have good feels at the end.
Yeah, it's like I love New York. Like that was Winston's, like one of his last lines was like, I love this city.
Yeah.
Because like he was like, this is crazy and I almost died.
Right.
And these people around me are insane, but I'm the most like invigorated that I've ever been in my life.
That's why I think every day I'm going to work.
It's like the allegory like everyone around New York.
Is insane and like wants to kill me.
Yeah.
But this place is cool.
Yeah, exactly. It's like fun and people can come together.
That's like actually, I never thought of it like the whole movie is like an allegory of New York.
It is. I think that movie set in any other city wouldn't have worked very well.
Yeah.
So, and again, not to foreshadow too much, but the second one definitely has some like stronger themes, I think, to that. And Oh, another little thing I was going to talk about before we get into our fun section, I guess, because right now we're just having meat discussions, which are still fun about weird stuff. So one little thing I noticed was all these scientists with PhDs who are geniuses. The whole movie, they are chain smoking like crazy.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you noticed.
So much smoking in
every
movie.
Scene. They're lighting up and they're just smoking cigars cigarettes like crazy.
Yeah.
And the first time I saw it was when Sigourney Weaver first went into the firehouse. And Dan Aykroyd was he was working on.
Oh, I noticed that. I was like, isn't it dangerous? He was had his head in the hood of a car and
then he turned around and he saw
there was
a cigarette in his mouth.
It's I don't think that's safe.
I've never really worked on cars, but I kind of feel that would be a thing.
I don't think you should have fire in your engines of any sort.
Yeah, because there's oil and stuff too, and grease on you. You're just gonna light yourself on fire, getting all greasy.
Yeah, and there were times when they were busting ghosts and they were smoking, and
or just at their firehouse or at the university or just whatever. I thought it was kind of strange, and maybe it was more normal back then.
But I mean, that was definitely a time when you could smoke most places in New York. Inside, you could smoke in a lot of places. So. Yeah.
It just felt like it was a way to make them look like they were very seriously into what they were doing. So they had to smoke a lot.
No, it wasn't even we're so cool and badass. It was just kind of we're intense. We need to drink lots of coffee and smoke lots of cigarettes because we're working so hard. And we're frazzled scientists. It was kind of along those lines.
So Jen, did you have any other big meaty things you wanted to talk about?
I think I'm good. We touched on most things. Basically, Ghostbusters is awesome.
Well, with that, I want to get into our little fun section where I think we're going to ask questions to each other that we come up with for each thing that we watch, just for fun. So I came up with a question.
Okay, good, because I'm still thinking about
No, that's fine, that's fine. And this one could take a little bit of time. What are 3 of your favorite things from the movie?
life?
Yeah, in life. Ghostbusters,
cheese.
Ghostbusters 2, and cheese. From the movie. Just 3 things that you really like.
Things.
Yeah. Or that you just liked in this
viewing,
yeah.
Okay, I guess number one number one thing is Bill Murray. I think he's
okay.
Just
with all his flaws.
With all of his flaws, I think he's so hilarious.
But I love him.
I don't know, just his scenes with I like his scenes with the mayor and the EPA guy and stuff, and how he's just a total dick, but he's always has a comeback. Yeah, and I don't know.
I think that's what every guy strives to be. Period.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but it's true.
Yeah, and he's cool without being. He's cool in a not cool guy way. I don't know. He's nerd, geeky, weird. Cool.
Well, I think Sigourney Weaver put it great when she said, "You're so odd."
Yes.
In her apartment after he was saying that he was in love with her after meeting her for the first time.
Yeah, I mean he had some creepy moments, but
I think he was just sort of, he wants to be a con man, but he's terrible at it.
Yeah.
That kind of a vibe.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I should do 3 things. Okay.
Yes,
I don't know. Okay.
And I'll do
Second thing. These aren't ranked. It's just the order in which I think of them. Second thing is New York, because this is definitely my first time.
Well, your answers are better than mine.
No, it's my first time watching this, actually living in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. I really, just in general, I've noticed, since moving here, whenever I watch a movie that takes place in New York, it, adds something special for me, and, recognizing places, because, I've never really lived in a place besides this where, you would actually have something filmed there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really cool. What else? Is it weird just to say, the ghost?
Yeah, well, I can tell you like the ghosts.
I like the ghost a lot. Oh man, I also really love Rick Moranis though. He's so funny. He's a smaller part in this movie, but he's so ridiculous. Yep. I don't know. I think he does a lot of different things in this movie. I don't know, he's kind of like clueless, but then he has to be like this. Well, I guess he's still clueless even when he's the keymaster.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
I remember like when I was a kid, I always liked that too,
it?
because I really loved Honey,
I
I Shrunk the Kids. I loved that movie when I was a kid. It was great.
Which came out like 10 years later.
Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was watching them all like, at the same time.
Sure.
So, yeah, Rick Moranis is really funny.
It was funny how early on we were saying that, like, oh, Ghostbusters, it's like a movie that you had to watch in the 90s, even though it came out, like, so far behind that. So. But, you know, I think it did have sort of a resurgence.
It was like, yeah, and it like lasted. You know?
No, we were saying
it would always be on TV and stuff like that. Like,
okay.
A lot of Bill Murray movies were.
So Rick Moranis locked in?
Yeah, well, I just said 4 things, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I guess that's okay.
Well. Okay.
But yeah, like the ghosts are like all like, I mean, there aren't that many, but they're like different and funny. Like, it's just cool seeing them like, oh, you know, like the scene when they're in the hotel and they're going after the Slimer?
Yes.
That's great. Like, that's probably my favorite part of the movie, when
that was a great scene.
They're like figuring stuff out, so it's still funny, and like
it was their first big mission.
Their first big encounter, besides like in the library when they don't know what they're doing. So
and they were very destructive. It showed like the I think that was a great way to show how powerful the proton packs were, because they were destroying everything.
Yes.
Like, they were very dangerous.
It was like starting fires.
Yeah, and so like when EPA guy came later, you kind of were like a little bit. Like, you couldn't argue with him too much, thinking that, like, oh, wait, these guys are just random dudes.
Maybe this stuff needs to be, like, regulated in some way.
And then, basically, the movie's answer to that was, like, fuck you.
fuck the rules.
We can do what we want, because we're the Ghostbusters, and everyone loves us.
Yeah. But
it's like real life.
I think that scene, like, kind of epitomizes why I love the movie, because it's, like, Bill Murray's, like, knocking shit over and being an asshole, but, like, he's successful at it. Yeah. And they're doing cool stuff, and...
They're catching ghosts. Busting them.
They're busted, and it makes them feel good. Yep. Okay. So, that was kind of a roundabout answer, but...
Okay. I like it.
Okay.
Do I get to answer my 3, or do you want to just
do
your own
yeah, do yours.
No, you can ask me a question, too, if you want.
Do it.
We haven't figured this out yet. Okay, well, I'll try to be quick. One thing that's on my list, I have to say, Sigourney Weaver's, like, hair game and everything, yes. Like, she was great. I thought, well, not just to, like, speak to, like, oh, her hair was great and her makeup was great and she looked great. She was, like, really good in the movie. Like, she was a great balance to Peter, because she wasn't putting up with his crap.
Wait, Peter Venkman. Yeah, sorry. I was like, we've been calling him Bill Murray the whole time.
Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Mr. Ghostbuster Bill Murray. She was great. Like, she was her own little character and stuff.
She's just so badass and everything, I feel.
Well, yeah,
and
she carried that role well as, you know, just her own character, which was awesome. And as freaking, like, Zool.
Right.
She was great, you know?
Yeah.
She was scary.
Like, even though she's kind of doing the damsel in distress role, it wasn't really that.
It actually wasn't, like, because he wasn't a hero.
Right.
He ain't no
like,
hero.
It was like, or I guess like you would think it was the damsel in distress role, because she does, like, she has this problem and, like, she does need help at the end, but at the same time she's, like, this very powerful kind of character, and, like, instead of becoming the damsel in distress, she becomes, like, the villain temporarily. Yeah. And that's, like, way cooler than just being like, oh, I need help, like...
Yeah, it was cool. You could tell that she was a pretty, like, badass character. I mean, one movie maybe we should watch for this is, like, Alien. I've never seen those.
Yeah.
And she's like, and, like, that's, like, the epitome of her being a badass.
Yeah,
so,
we need to watch
episode 5, we're doing Alien, I guess. Okay. But, so Sigourney Weaver I thought was awesome. Yeah. I thought she was great in many ways. And, like, the scene where, she was, like, in the bed and everything, she was crazy. Like, she was actually pretty scary. They did a good job with making her seem like, you know, possessed and things like that. Yeah. And I like that scene between her and Venkman, because it did show that Venkman, if he was really a bad guy, he probably would have taken advantage of that situation weirdly. So it was redeeming for him too. And I thought she was great.
Doing that with, like, a possessed person would be scary.
Yeah, but, you know. Yeah. So that... another one, I was also going to say Rick Moranis. Yeah. I think he was great. So I guess the gatekeeper and the freaking Keymaster. I thought he was great. Like, he's always great. It made me think of Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors because he kind of looks similar. But I think he was more nerdy in this, honestly, than in Little Shop of Horrors.
We didn't even see him being nerdy. It was more like he was just socially awkward.
I felt like he was creepy in a different way, honestly.
Yeah,
he was, like, all up in her business.
Stalked her. Yeah. Like, every time she walked by his door, he'd pop out and just, like, talk nonstop and, like, kind of get her in a corner. He basically,
like, watched her and, like, was up in her business way too much. So sexual harassment is in this movie for sure. One more thing. I'm trying to think of another thing that I thought was cool. I liked Winston because he was like a different type of like. I feel like in a way Peter was a bit of I don't know if I want to say everyman character, but he was like a relatable character in a way that
we never saw him being like too sciencey. Like whenever like Dan Aykroyd or someone was explaining something scientifically, he'd be like, "Tell it to me in a simpler way." Right.
And I thought Winston
so he's like
was
the voice
like that
of the audience
too.
at times.
I thought Winston was like that. He was just like the kind of he was like the real audience member where like he just got in this crazy business
he's like,
and he's
along for the ride. Yeah. I kind of wish he was in the movie earlier, honestly. Like,
I wish he would have had more lines. But I wanted him to be developed more. One weird tidbit is I heard that he was supposed to be played by possibly Eddie Murphy at the time, but he passed up on it because he went and did Beverly Hills Cop or something. So like I do have knowing that now, I kind of feel like if Eddie Murphy was in it, it might have been more of a pivotal role because Eddie Murphy would have like riffed and been funny and like he would have like even competed with Bill Murray. It would have been a lot of like good comedy power there. While
he was kind of like
Winston
more,
he was
like a
little
more straight edge. Like
fine.
Whenever like Bill Murray was being like crazy all the time, and like Dan Aykroyd was being kind of like crazy in a different way, or like not intentionally being goofy, but like he'd be like in his own little world or something. And Winston was kind of like, just, I'm just doing this job and blah, blah,
But he stuck around. I thought at the end, like, he could have, like, by the time they were done being at it, like, when they saw the mayor and everything, he could have probably bailed after that if he really didn't want to do it. But he stuck around and he, like, put his life on the line as well. He's like a
which was kind
unsung
of like,
hero, I guess.
And that's, like, pretty incredible considering he had only been working for them for, like, 3 weeks.
Yeah, that was weird when he was like, I've only been working with them for 3 weeks, yet I'm still here.
Yeah.
So, he was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I might change that. I really like the visuals of the movie as well. Like, all the visuals I thought were great. Like, the way that they framed the scenes and everything.
Okay, yeah.
Like, all the colors and things that they used, I thought was really cool.
They had a lot of, like, red and green accents at times. Like,
I agree.
It'd be a lot of, like, very neutral colors. Like, everyone was in, like, tan, like, overcoats. And, like, the buildings were tan and gray. But then there'd be, like, the Ghostbusters logo, or like someone in a red jacket, or the flashing lights on their car and stuff like that. So like cool.
Red and
like
green
accents.
definitely I think was if we looked at it again, might be like a theme.
Yeah, I was at some point I started like noticing those things, and it was red and green were around a lot.
Yep.
Okay. I don't know. I guess I sort of have a question.
Sure.
Well, it's more like something I was trying to notice more in the movie, and like I only found a couple things. I was wondering if you noticed anything like this. I was looking for like kind of like horror movie / Scooby-Doo type like tropes in the movie, because like I noticed like the two that I thought of were like they're in the hotel and they're like, let's split up. And then they, go, and they're, like, hunting ghosts, and, like, going down these hallways, and, like, that's just, like, it reminded me of Scooby-Doo so much in that moment. Yeah. And then, like, also, and that was only, like, Scooby-Doo thing, but, then, like, at the end.
That horror trope.
I guess so. Yep. And then, like, in the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, that's, like, another favorite thing. I mean, that's great.
That's very iconic, yeah.
Yeah. But like
his facial expressions were very funny.
Oh yeah,
he was mad or like getting hit with like the lasers or whatever.
Yeah,
that was funny.
So yeah, like the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man terrorizing New York City. It was like very King Kong. I felt like he's like even climbing up the tower at the end. So I was wondering if you noticed any other like classic movie or like horror movie kind of tropes that they touched on. Besides just general, like, ghosts and like...
No, I think that's why this movie was so great, because they really took those ideas, but then didn't do typical things.
Right.
You know, like the
and
ghosts
they made them
were weird
like not
looking.
scary.
And, and the kinds of stuff that you really watched for weren't necessarily even ghost related. I really think like it was a very character driven type of movie. Mm-hmm. So, no, I didn't really notice too many other like horror tropes. There probably are a few, but I can't really think of any. Yeah, I just thought it was really good. I think that's a good way to look at it, or like cap that part is that it's just like a pretty original movie. I think that's why it was so successful. You know, it was very different from anything that I can think of that's around the same time or even similar like themes. Like it doesn't fit into horror necessarily. Yeah,
that movie's just like its own thing. So
yeah, it's like a Beetlejuice where it's like so off, you know, and so like original in a way that it sticks with you. It sticks with the culture because it just stands out.
Yeah,
but is also fun and a little bit off and a little bit like you root for like bad guys a little bit, or you root for like people that aren't, you know, perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
So
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think that kind of wraps it up.
Yeah, we've talked about a lot of different things. Maybe not everything, but a lot of stuff.
So yeah, like not too much to say besides that. Like Ghostbusters is awesome, and
it is awesome. I agree.
I don't think I've ever met anyone who didn't like Ghostbusters. I think
it's kind of hard.
It's a crowd pleaser movie, and I think a lot of people. Like, I always thought of it as, like, kind of a family movie. I don't know.
It's funny.
It's just funny, and, like, I think it's good for adults. It's good for kids. I always watched it as a kid, and, like, rewatching it, there's definitely, like, some more raunchy stuff than I remembered, but, like, that's
raunchy,
great.
but in a very, like, subtle way that you would not probably pick up on.
I never picked up on as a kid, and it made, like, certain things funnier to me now. Like, so, yeah, it was great. Alright.
Yeah, so... this is like probably the end of our first episode. Mm-hmm. I do want to talk about how in the next episode we're probably going to do something very different. We don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but it could be another movie. We might start a series. We're looking to do a lot of different things. We have different things lined up that we've thought about and that we want to try to put out there soon. I do want to do Ghostbusters 2 at some point because I think it's going to be a great...
But not next, because this is not Ghostbusters podcast.
No, it's not. No, well, maybe.
Every episode we'll talk about Ghostbusters. I think
Ghostbusters podcast.
We can get like a good 100 episodes out of just Ghostbusters alone.
Yeah, probably. We got a lot of this first one. But yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see what next episode's gonna be. But yeah, if there's anything you want to add to our discussion, something that we didn't touch on, please feel free to comment on whatever.
I guess YouTube.
Yeah, we haven't decided we're going to put up, but
it'll be somewhere.
If you're listening to this, then obviously we found somewhere to put up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, part of what we're doing. Oh, this is another thing about the podcast in general is like it's ShareTime. It's called ShareTime because we want to share things with each other, but we also want to share with other people as well because we want to open discussions to anybody who's listening and enjoys any of the things that we're talking about. So if you like Ghostbusters, you want to hear some different things you might have not thought about before or whatever.
Yeah.
Listen to the podcast and then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
In the comments or
and it's a movie that's been around for a while, but it's kind of it's not something that I've ever really analyzed before, which I think was kind of cool. Like we picked something that was like I imagine it would be like a fun, like fan favorite thing that you always just kind of watch and it's fun. But it was kind of, I enjoyed like looking at it at like
a little bit more objectively.
Yeah, and like trying to like think more about the characters because there's some really great characters in that movie and just kind of analyzing a little bit more and thinking about why is it so great? Like everyone loves Ghostbusters. Why is that? And like so.
This is a random note.
Yeah.
But the character Ray, Dan Aykroyd, we also sometimes watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Mac so much. Because it's like he was very like childlike innocence kind of guy.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah. So that's part of what we want to do with this podcast too. Like we've watched a lot of different things as well, and we want to kind of like tie different things.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's no limits. Like I mean, we kind of do tend towards more like nerdy stuff at times, but like we were talking about, like, maybe we're going to do, like, some action movies or whatever. Like, anything, you can look into almost anything more deeply, so it's just fun to do that.
Yeah, and I think we're also, it might not always just be like, oh, we're going to watch something and then talk about it. Maybe we've already watched something and then we're going to talk about something specific about it.
Right.
Like, oh, we've watched all of Buffy, we're going to talk about comparing, like, Spike and Angel, and how Spike is great and Angel sucks. Things like that. Like, have a discussion about that. Or, things like that. So.
Yeah, so we'll see. But we're excited, and we hope you enjoyed listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening to our first podcast ever. I think it was pretty good, so I don't care if you think it sucks.
Yeah.
But we're going to do more, and it's really fun, and hopefully if you thought it was fun, let's keep going. So, thanks a lot.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
ShareTime?